So Behavior just had their community stream, and it is overall really good. Actually, this is a huge overall a huge W from Behavior. The first thing I talked about was 2v8. Like the only part that's a little bit like little bit less good was the 2v8 section. Oni's getting nerfed, Slinger's getting buffed, anti-camp change, new maps, yada yada yada. Nothing super interesting there. The more interesting thing and more disappointing thing is what is happening with Legion. He will not be coming back to 2v8 in the next iteration, and likely won't be coming anytime soon. They went over a bunch of reasons why, but more or less, it's because he's not super popular with survivors. Balancing him enough to be more enjoyable to burst and to be more balanced is difficult, and rather than spending a bunch of time trying to fix Legion, they're going to instead shift their priorities towards easier killers to balance. It's kind of like what they've already been doing, is just now they're telling us, which is why we have had people like Chucky getting in, even though we had like 4 dash killers, because dashes are just easy to balance. So we're going to be probably seeing more of the very basic one-note powers that are easy to balance and popular coming in, and the more niche characters are going to be not anytime soon. On from the bad part, they're going to be implementing diminishing returns. What this means is that when you stack a bunch of perks together that do the same thing, you're going to be getting less value from each perk as it goes on. This is something that we've been wanting for a long time. This is a great idea. This is great that they're doing it. What this means in practice is if you have 4 haste perks or 4 healing perks or whatever, you're going to be getting less value from each of them. First perk with the highest number attached to it will give its full value, while the second perk will be 50% of its value, third is 25%, and so on. So the first perk, the example they gave us, is Botany Knowledge at 50%, and then Desperate Measures, normally at 2 hooks, will give you a 40% healing modifier. Instead, because it's the second highest perk you have giving you healing speed, it'll only be 20%. It'll be cut in half. Now, say you had another perk that also gave you 40% healing speed. This would be cut down to a quarter, so this third perk would only give you 10%, and so on. This is extremely important because it's going to make it so that the healing speeds can't be incredibly super fast to the point where you can heal faster than a killer is capable of downing you, but it doesn't make it so you get completely fully punished for stacking multiple of these perks. I think this is probably the best implementation of sort of quote-unquote capping, but not actually capping, stacking perks. Obviously, this isn't perfect. On its own, it doesn't fully fix everything. What they only showed us in the stream was healing speed, but we're not sure how things like, say, gen speed is going to work, because the main perks that everybody knows about gen speed aren't give you 10% faster gen or whatever. You know, Deja Vu is strong because it shows you ores, not because it makes you do gen 6% faster. The main perks for gen speed are Hyperfocus, Stakeout, and Fast Track. The percentages that they give you are based off of skill checks, and the way they stack is very weird. So you wouldn't be able to say, oh, well, you know, Hyperfocus gives you 50% faster gens, because it's like, well, it gives you a stacking bonus off of skill checks and yada yada yada. So I'm interested to see how they're going to implement it for perks like that, but even when it just comes to things like Botany Knowledge or stacking with Will Make It, I think this is very good, because it prevents those ridiculous scenarios. Obviously, still needs some more work. Things like Resurgence aren't going to be affected by this, so if you have Resurgence into somebody else will make getting you, then this won't affect you at all. But that's more a problem with Resurgence than healing speed. In any case, this is a really, really good, a good change that they're making. The only thing that I want from them is I need them to give it a tutorial. This is like a relatively complex concept, and especially for new and casual players, they're going to be equipping perks and getting punished for this without realizing what's happening. So I'm worried that if they implement this without giving a good tutorial to teach new players and casual players how it works, we're going to be seeing them see some issues with it where, oh, that's weird. Botany Knowledge all of a sudden has a really low survive rate because everybody's stacking Botany with do no harm and whatever, and Botany keeps getting these nerfed. You know, it gets less and less returns, and because these players don't realize it, they keep stacking so many perks together, they're essentially wasting, you know, half of their build because of how small the bonuses they're getting. It's a problem that if ends up coming to life without a tutorial for it, you see that happen, and then they start either buffing Botany Knowledge until it becomes ridiculous on its own, or they end up nerfing the diminishing returns effect. Even though the effect is fine, it's just that people aren't playing around it. So that's the only issue I have with the diminishing returns as it stands. Hopefully, you know, I wanted to address things like hyperfocus fast track, even though, you know, those aren't percentage based, and a tutorial. But other than that, As it stands, this is a great change. If it comes to life exactly as they've said it, that'll still be amazing. And I just need them to do a little bit more care after it comes in to make it a little bit more obvious and make sure it applies to everything that needs it to be applied to. Now, the next thing they talked about is huge. Blight is finally getting nerfed. He's being brought down to 4.4 meters per second. His pallet breaks are going to be reduced, very similar to how when Ghoul breaks a pallet, he loses a couple of tokens. This will eliminate the Brutal Blight into automatic free hit from 2 rushes, essentially completely. It's going to be a very good change. It's going to make Blight much more healthier, and hopefully it's going to be able to make balancing GBD in general better. Because the main reason, at least in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, the main reason that we saw those huge pallet density updates and why pallet density is still really rough right now is because of killers like Blight. Namely, especially, is because of Blight. His ability to hit you so quickly required you to have pallets so close together that you would be able to get to a pallet in the time it took him to break one. So these are great changes. I'm really, really happy that they got around to this. I think Blight is still going to be one of the strongest killers in the game, but now he will not be completely mindless, which is, it's great. Next, they also gave a small nerf to Nurse's Last Breath, which is just reducing its stun duration from 30% to 10%. This isn't really that big of a deal. She's not going to suddenly, she doesn't really move in placement in tier lists or anything. She's like very slightly harder to play, but if you were a good nurse, then you're not really affected by this. So it makes her, it's not really that big of a deal. I'm kind of hoping they come through and add blindness to her charging on blinks. That way we can have more interesting aura breaks. That's the biggest change I want for Nurse at the moment. But yeah, not a huge change to Nurse, but still nice that they're looking at her. And then after that, they told us a bunch of killers that will be getting some small buffs because of the diminishing returns effects. I'm not sure what these small tweaks are. They just give us a list of names, so it's hard for me to really commentate on any. Now, the last thing that they gave us was they're going to be adding in UI so that you can see your fellow survivors' perks in-game. This is a great change. It allows solo queue to better understand what other people's builds are, help you to better coordinate. Oh, that person has Deliverance and they're off of a gen. I should just leave them because they're probably going for Hook. It's going to make playing as solo queue a little bit easier. There is one small asterisk here, which is that they also made it so you will be able to see the killer at the start of the trial, or at least that's what it seems like. I hope they change that, because killers like Trapper and Hag and Wraith and Ghostface, people who have setup or stealth at the start of the trial especially, are really hurt by this, and these are generally the weaker killers. Having people know what your ability is, what your killer is right at the start of the match is pretty harmful because it helps people to be more looking out for them in the first place. My personal change is I would make it so you don't know who the killer is until the killer has gotten an injured state. That's because once the killer has gotten an injured state, then that survivor 100% knows who the killer is, and if they were in a Swift, they could communicate it to the rest of this. So if they change it to that, then this is essentially a way to make solo queue and Swift be on similar levels. If a Swift would have information, i.e. the killer injured them, this is what the killer is, then so should solo queue. That's the only change that I have for that. I'm hoping they do that change, and other than that, the implementation is great. So yeah, overall, this was a really good stream. This is going to be an exciting PTB, and most of the changes, pretty much all of the changes, are really good with just a few minor tweaks that I hope to see. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time.